Let's pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and legislative assemblies for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Good morning, honorable members. Welcome to today's sitting, and the clerk can start us off today's business.
Order number 1, administration of oath.
Next order.
Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Next order.
Order number 3, messages.
We have a message from Her Excellency the Governor, and I'm going to take you through the same message. Have the following message from Her Excellency the Governor, Honorable Wavinya Ndeti, the Governor of Machakos County, pursuant to Standing Order number 39. And the message is about the nomination of selection panel for the recruitment of the Secretary to the Machakos County Public Service Board. Honorable members, Section 57 of the County Government Act, number 17 of 2012, as amended in 2020, establishes the County Public Service Board, whose composition is provided for in Section 58 of the said Act. Section 58A(1) of the County Government Act 2012 provides that wherever a vacancy arises in a county public service board, the governor shall nominate and, with the approval of the county assembly, appoint members to a selection panel for the purpose of selecting suitable candidates for appointment as members of the county public service board. Honorable members, it is worth noting that the office of the Secretary of the County Public Service Board fell vacant following a House resolution made on 29th November 2022, recommending that removal from office of Mr. Onesimus Moya Mutisia as the Secretary of the County Public Service Board. Further, Section 58A(2)(1) of the County Government Act provides for composition of the selection panel, which shall consist of the following: a chairperson not being a public officer. Number 2, one person from the private sector. Number 3, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya who is a member of the Law Society of Kenya. An accountant who is a member of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya. And one person from an association representing workers. Honorable members, in this regard, the Governor of Machakos County has nominated persons to constitute a selection panel for the purposes of selecting suitable candidates for appointment as the Secretary of the Machakos County Public Service Board, pursuant to Section 58A, subsection 2 and 1 of the County Government Act. The nominees who have been forwarded to the Assembly for approval in accordance with Section 58A, subsection 1 and subsection 2 and 3 of the County Government Act are as follows. Number 1 is Gregory Kavua, who is supposed to be the chairperson of that select committee. Number 2 is Nelson Osiemo Wanyonyi, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Number 3 is John Mwangi Thiongo, who is an accountant and a member of ISPAC. Then we have Ruth John, who is a workers' representative. Then Deborah Muya, private sector representative. Pursuant to Section 58A of the County Government Act and Section 7 of the Public Appointments County Assembly's Approval Act 2017, the nominees are hereby committed to the Committee on Appointment for Vetting. Thank you, honorable members. Next order.
Order number 4, petitions.
Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Next order.
Order number 8, motion. Approval of motion on construction of necessary amenities required to set up an ECD center.
Thank you, Clerk. At this point, I wish to invite Honorable Evelyn Zeki, MCA Kangundo East Ward, and also the Minority Whip, to come forward and take us through that motion. Honorable Nzeki, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm Zeki Evelyn, MCA Kangundo East Ward. Honorable Speaker, that aware that Article 43, Sub-Article 1F, Constitution of Kenya provides that every person has the right to education. Aware that Article 53 of the Constitution provides that every child has a right to free and compulsory basic education, basic nutrition, shelter and health care, protection from abuse, neglect, harmful and cultural practices, all forms of violence, inhuman treatment and punishment, and hazardous or exploitative labor, parental care, and protection. Further, aware that Part 2 of the 4th Schedule of the Constitution provides that county governments are mandated to oversee primary education and child care facilities, including the hiring of the pre-primary education teachers and assistants. Acknowledging that Article 182, Sub-Article 2 of the Constitution provides for the cooperation between the national government and the county government in performing the functions and exercising powers in the provision of proximate and easily accessible services, aware that the National Pre-Primary Education Policy Standard Guidelines 2018 clearly outlines the standards that should be followed in putting up infrastructure for the ECD classes. Aware that there have been cases of vandalism for the stand-alone ECD classes, giving an example of Kadama ECD class in Muvuti Kimakimwe Ward. Further, aware that the stand-alone classes lack basic amenities like toilets, kitchenettes, food store, and office space for the ECD personnel, like in the case of Kisekini ECD Center in Kangundo East Ward, Kadama ECD Center in Muvuti Kimakimwe, Sawasawa ECD Center in Masinga Central, Mungala ECD in Mumbuni North, and Chandu ECD Center, among others. Further, aware that where ECD classes are hosted by primary schools, the ECD learners share amenities with the primary school pupils, which is against what is stipulated in the National Pre-Primary Education Policy Standard Guidelines 2018 and County Pre-Primary Education Policy 2019. Noting that the National Pre-Primary Education Policy Standard Guidelines 2018 and also the County Pre-Primary Education Policy 2019 gives clear guidelines on the ECD center standards that ought to be adhered to. Honorable Speaker, I wish to move the motion that this House discusses and approves that the county government of Machakos, through the Department of Education, sets aside adequate funds in the department's budget to cater for the construction of all the amenities, that is toilets, kitchenette, food store, and office space for the ECD personnel that are required to set up an EC center, strictly adhering to the set out guidelines and standards. Before, Madam Speaker, I call a seconder to the motion. The motion is self-explanatory. We can never try ignorance when it comes to education because it is touching the lives of our dear children. It is also talking about their well-being and also protection from any kind of risk that might affect them when sharing those amenities with other pupils. So I call upon Mheshimiwa Maitha, MCA Mudhwani Ward, to second my motion.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Thank you, Honorable Maitha. I now propose the question that this House discusses and approves that the county government of Machakos, through the Department of Education, sets aside adequate funds in the department's budget to cater for construction of the amenities, that is toilets, kitchenette, food store, and office space for the ECD personnel that are required to set up an ECD center, strictly adhering to the set out guidelines and standards. I now proceed to invite members to discuss this motion. Members, it is your turn. Honorable Helen Ndeti can start us off. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand to appreciate our member of this County Assembly, Madam Evelyn, for bringing this motion. Honorable members, nursery or pre-primary education is the most important part of education in a growing child. And in 2019, I happened to be the Vice Chair of Education. Me and my chairman took the entire committee to Singapore, where we did a very good benchmarking. We were able to see how the Singapore government pays a lot of attention to early childhood education. And we came back and wrote some regulations, which, if adhered to, should be able to improve the infrastructure of these nursery schools in Machakos County. I believe, and I'm sure, that our governor is very committed to ensuring that our children get the best. And this being the time when we are drawing the annual budget, I call upon the budget committee and together with the education committee to ensure that there is enough funding to start the process of ensuring that our early childhood classrooms and even teachers is well catered for. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ndeti. Honorable DS, and then Honorable Lloyd, in that order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm Stephen Mwande, representing the great people of Kalakale Katini Ward. Madam Speaker, I stand to support the motion that it's important for the county executive to plan well, especially when constructing these ECD classes. And also, they can as well come up with a plan, in fact, to equip the already existing ECD centers that we have. Madam Speaker, with the introduction of feeding program by the county executive, by the governor, you will find that some of these ECD centers are depending on the structures that are in the primary schools. And so the ECD learners are left only with the option of sharing with the primary kids and also storing the food in those stores, in the primary school stores. So, Madam Speaker, I think this is the right time we now took care of those kitchenettes that are required and also those other basic amenities that are required in our ECD centers. In fact, both the standalones and also the ones that are situated in primary schools, so that they may they may be separated from using structures that are meant for the primary schools. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do support.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Yes. Honorable Lloyd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Evelyn, for bringing this motion. It's important. Education is very important. Like I keep on insisting, everyone has a talent on different avenues, but some of us have traversed around in many places because of the education we got. They say education is a gift, is the only gift you give to your children, or we can give our community, and no one will take away from them. You can give someone properties, and all those properties can go away. But when you give someone education, that one does not go away. The encouragement for the education starts at the ECD level. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to support this motion and ask the executive to make sure that when you are building the classes, the proper amenities are put in place to encourage the students, and also to make sure that the teachers as well as are encouraged. Because schools where we do not have toilets, we are putting our children into danger of not attending the school, and also the health matters. So thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I support the motion.
Thank you so much, Honorable Lloyd. Honorable Wanjiro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I applaud Honorable Evelyn for this timely motion. You know, she called me in the morning and asked me if I was marooned, if I was coming. And her being a whip, I would not want to be in her bad books, and I had to come. This is a very important motion, and I rise to support that the counties have been mandated to promote early education in the early childhood education. And as an educationist, or in layman's language, a teacher myself, I can confirm that 50% of learning depends on the environment. So if the environment is wanting, the value of education definitely is left wanting. And ECD being the basic level of education, it needs to be improved in our county where we stand to serve. As we take care of the amenities that we're talking about, close to my heart is children with disabilities that are left behind in the rural setting mostly. You find that the parents will not take them to school because it is more of a burden. Therefore, it is my prayer that the amenities will cater for children who are disabled. When I talk of amenities, I talk of the classes, the building setting, and also the furniture. They require special kind of furniture for them to be able to at least be at par with the able-bodied children. The guidelines provided by the national government do not only give the specifications of the classes, they also give specifications of the compound, of the fencing, and everything. So if we are to go by the guidelines, there's much that needs to be done. And I pray that as we budget this year, we put into consideration and give a priority to the area of education, especially the ECD. Because when I went to school to become a teacher, on my first day in college, we were told that a teacher will be judged by God harshly. And as we judge the teachers, and even as they will be judged by God, we have been given a platform to give them good working conditions. So because we have been given this platform, honorable members, let us do our part, budget and ensure, and even follow up. There's so much that needs to be done. Apart from the facilities, the amenities, the curriculum, it needs to be followed up so that we ensure that our children are competing at the same level with other children. we do not just leave the teachers to teach what they feel is right. There is a curriculum that has been provided, and we need a follow-up and evaluation program. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. More contributions, Honorable Ndawa, Honorable Katiti, and Honorable Kavi, in that order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My name is Judas Ndawa, representing the great people of Matu. Honorable Speaker, I will start by applauding my most able minority whip and MCA for Kangundo East for coming up with this noble motion concerning our young ones. Honorable Speaker, the motion is timely, and I should say it is also urgent. In fact, it is extremely urgent. Honorable Speaker, our Constitution, Article 42, sub-Article D, gives education as a right, not as a privilege. Article 42, if you can consult your Constitution, whoever has one, it is given as a right, not a privilege. And if something has been given by the Constitution, that means that every child has to be given whatever is required so as to enjoy that right given or provided for by that article of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, we have so many ECDs, and from the number of ECDs we have, most of them lack the items which have been enlisted in this motion. Starting with the standalone ECDs, and even those which are within the primary school, you will find that the toilets meant for the standard 1 up to standard 8 are the same toilets being used by these young kids, the ECD pupils. Honorable Speaker, remember they say it's not the same. You may find that the hole which is in that toilet, that pit latrine, even the child can go inside. So that is now posing danger to our young ones. Honorable Speaker, we need to move very fast to take a stock of schools which are lacking such things. The Honorable Member has given us a lead. She has named some. It's only that she forgot to mention Matu and maybe other words. You know, every member will be looking to hear his word being mentioned. If you go to a Matu, to an ECD by name Kaliane ECD is a school which cannot, if the public health officers were serious with the work, they would have closed most of these schools, including that one of Kaliane. And the reason why I'm saying it should have closed the schools is because there is no latrine. It is built using bricks which are not the red ones. That is the pure soil. You know, if you make bricks, you can eat them, not cured. So there is risk, especially now during this time of these torrential rains. Our kids are at very high risk, and I'm very sure it is not only that one. In other words, we have similar problems. So, Honorable Speaker, I'm suggesting we approve this motion. Then as we look for other logistics, the Committee on Education should move very fast to take stock of schools so that we can be able to give priority depending on the priority basis. There are schools which are at least some are stable and others are not stable. So I request honorable members to agree with this motion and request as the article cited here. Nowadays I'm very keen. If any member goes and draft a motion without following the Constitution, and you bring it here with thinking that we are all asleep, this assembly is very awake. Honorable Evelyn, you have passed the test. Article 192, the one you have cited, it talks about cooperation between the two levels of government. And since now education is co-shared, let me say it is co-shared, because a big portion of it is in the national government, and the county has the ECD and the vocational training. So each level of government has interest in this. Again, Honorable Speaker, Article 6 of the same constitution recognizes two levels of government, and it says that the two levels of government shall, and if you hear the word shall means must. Shall, the underlined words here, shall work in consultation and cooperation. So there is no one level of government which can pretend that it want to work alone without the other part. These are twins, and they need to work together. I remember sometimes one of my relative, not my relative, one of my neighbor, and twins. And by bad luck, one son passed on. They were two. One was called Mbada, the other one was called Mutua. So Mutua went to the Lord. So when they were planning for the burial, the father told another colleague, I've lost my son. So the colleagues asked, which son? He said, I got two and one is gone. So the question from that person who was being consulted, he asked, out of the two, whom are you going to bury? Of course, you'll bury the dead one. But in our Kamba customary law, there are those who are fond of these traditional beliefs. If you have twins and one dies, before you put him or her in the grave, you put the alive one, then you move him or her, so that you can be able. If you don't do that, the other colleague, the remaining child, will also follow that one.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yes, it is true.
How
It
you,
is-
I,
it is
didn't,
a
I didn't
tradition.
get what you said.
It is, yes, I'm saying,
Yes.
if you have twins and you lose one, when it comes to time of burial, the alive one must go to the grave first, then you move him or her. Then you can bury the other one. You will be secure, and you will be assured of remaining with the other one. But if you go without going that route, you are likely to lose the other one. So, Honorable Speaker, I'm saying now the national government and the county government must work together to ensure we address all these problems.
They must
Thank
go
you,
to the
Honorable-
grave together.
Yes. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Thank you. Honorable Katiti, that was awesome.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, I want to acknowledge the member of the motion, that is Honorable Evelyn. Though she did not call me, she knew ultimately I'll be here to support our motion.
Yes.
Then on the issue of Mutua, that was because of the naming. You cannot name the two twins, one Bada and the other Mutua. The naming Mutua yesterday because you name Bada or Kelly because they are two. Okay. Yeah.
What we don't know.
So
Okay.
first, I want to thank Honorable Evelyn because we must acknowledge that we are all we are all beneficiaries of education. The CEO of this country, Mheshimiwa Honorable President, Excellence William Ruto, is an example. Wavinya is an example. We are an example. How people who have gone through education are examples of the benefits that we get when we get that we have when we get education. We cannot overlook the challenges that our kids get once they join primary schools, because without it is, then it makes their lives difficult, in that in terms of their learning. But also, I want to say before we build those amenities, then we should also look to the classes, because most of the classes are now, I quote in Mudeden, almost falling not because of lanes, but up to now, we haven't built a new class. Yet there was an agreement this year, every year we'll be building 2 classes per ward. So I do encourage and request that we come up with a budget that can support building of classes, because they are paramount and important so that our kids may get into good classes. Those amenities are paramount, and they have a good significance because our children they are prone to cholera, they are prone to another kind of infections when they are in a littered environment. So let us have a budget. Once we have a budget of a class, let us also put a budget of those amenities, because they are important. Of late, we have a daycare that are coming, but I would wish that because those are for mothers that are going to work. Before we go there, I would encourage that we build more classes. ECD classes, they are paramount and important across the county. So I support the mover of the motion, and I say thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Kavi, are you still interested? Then we have Honorable Joanna, Honorable Brian, Honorable Paul, Honorable Mwanga, in that order. Honorable Anastasia, Honorable Katangi, 001.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Don't worry about Honorable Katangi.
Thank you, Madam
Proceed.
Speaker.
Proceed.
I rise to support the motion because of its significance, and the story and the motion relates to myself very well. So many years back, when I joined nursery school here in Mombone Primary, they had a very big toilet that it was size of this table. So on my first day when I went there to relieve myself, as a very innocent and young kid, I thought it's a trap that was set there to kill me. So the next day, my mom had a lot of difficulties convincing me to go back to that school, because I went home knowing that these people had bad intentions, because I had seen in the movies those traps in Thailand, where they normally set big holes, people get inside there and they are swallowed. So I thought they wanted me swallowed, and I think that still relates to today. The kind of amenities that we have in our ECD centers can affect and influence the perception that these young kids will have towards education, because it is the introductory stage to education, and the kind of reception or environment that we will subject our kids to can determine whether those young kids are going to like education. Because if the environment is not conducive enough, kids will view it as a place where they are taken to undergo through agony. So we need to be very keen on the kind of design and also where we do our classes. And therefore, what I would urge this House, Madam Speaker, that has to start here from the Assembly. We are the people who normally review the budget and approve. And as a member of education committee, if you look at the order of priority in terms of items, the way the budget categories have been categorized, education, I think, ranks number 8. And if we are serious as a county and we want to secure the future of Machakos, we must be serious and see how we can improve in terms of budgetary priority and ensure that education, the same priority that is granted to health, roads, we need to see the same emphasis being granted to the education sector, so that even if we adopt the motion today, Madam Speaker, and we are still allocating 1 million shillings for a class, there is not much that can be done with 1 million shillings. So, even as we propose, we also need to empower the department financially by providing enough budget allocation. And we need to make it a law that anywhere, because you will find we are allocating a class to a particular area, but there is no provision for a toilet. I think that's where we started failing. So we need to make it a law or a requirement that every class that is allocated must be accompanied by a provision for a better toilet that is favorable and suitable for these young kids. And also, we must ensure there is provision for water, because we just do a class, there is no water tank. So you find most of the time those young kids get infected because of things that can be avoided by ensuring that we factor the hygiene factors that needs to be taken care of. So we need to make it not just resolving as a house. We need to make it a mandatory requirement that every ECD, even those who are done in the past and they do not have a standard toilet, we need to make it a requirement that in the coming budget allocation, I think the education committee must tour all the classes and come up with a data showing which ECD centers do not have a corresponding social amenity like a toilet and probably a better kitchen, so that those can be factored in the coming financial year, so that we can resolve. Because we might have very good roads, we might have very good health facilities, but the best way to remain healthy is putting in place preventive measures. If our kids operate in a clean and a suitable environment, the number of trips being made to the health facilities will reduce because of taking care of those kids, and they are normally the most exposed. So, and on top of it, as I finish, Madam Speaker, even for the institutions that are within the public schools, we need to have a very clear distinction, because ECD education is devolved, and we are still having a challenge where, for instance, if the county government provides food for the ECD classes, especially where they are together, most of the time you find an allocation that is supposed to serve that ECD class for an entire term ends up being consumed by their counterparts in the primary school. So within a week or two, those kids will not have food. So we must see, even if they are together, we must have a provision where the area where the ECD kids are operating from, not only providing the social amenities, we must also secure and ensure that there is a very clear separation between them, and ensure that the people who have been put there to manage the ECD centers have total control of the institution. Because sometimes you find, because of that interaction and the schools being placed under the care of the primary school's head teacher, sometimes you find things that parents are not being supposed to pay, they are treated the same as their counterparts in primary, which sometimes ends up burdening the ECD parents for nothing. And lastly, as we also look at the structures, I think, Madam Speaker, we also need to review the terms of our ECD teachers, because if we have good facilities and the personnel side of it is not taken care of, we'll just have better structures but zero input to our kids. So we also need to look at how the deficit that is there in terms of ECD teachers, and ensure as we also build, we have enough manpower to support our kids. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I'm sorry for that. Got some irritation. Yeah, we can proceed. It was Honorable Joanna after that. Thank you, Honorable Kavyu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also stand to support that motion by Honorable Evelyn. Madam Speaker, ECD is the most basic level of education. And Madam Speaker, the perception which has been there when we talk of ECD, it is like we are imagining. And even when we talk of standalone and not standalone, we sometimes think in terms of classes, that we have constructed a class which is either within an existing primary school or a class which is erected within maybe it's a class maybe in an isolated compound. Madam Speaker, we should be looking at ECD as an institution, and an institution will have for ECD a play group, pre-primary 1 and pre-primary 2. To me, those are 3 classes: an office, a staff room, a store, a kitchenette, all the facilities which have been cited on this motion. So, Madam Speaker, even in the developed countries, the weight given to ECD, because it is the foundation on which all the other learning levels is laid, the teachers in those ECD levels are even PhD holders, because you are equipped to understand more about that child, the psychology of that child, the sociology of that child. You are supposed to be equipped to understand the child, because whatever you lay in them, whatever you inculcate in them, that will now form basis of what happens to that child going forward. If we are not very keen with the ECD centers, with the learners in ECD centers, it will just be garbage in, garbage out. The same material, the same learners are now handed over to primary schools, then to high schools. And then at the end of the day, you find that whatever products we get, because those people lacked foundation, are the kind of people who are ejected out of even the universities, are unable even to address the challenges which are prevailing within our society. And I would like to say that we must be keen to make the environment very conducive. Even the play materials, the environment, the first learning, or rather character formation and mannerism is taught as at ECD level. So we must be able to expose the learners to the right environment, because the methodology of learning is by seeing and by feeling. Imagine what they go through is what forms in their mind. They are in a compound without toilets. They are in a compound. They cannot even relate what an ideal a school is supposed to be, what an ideal environment or even a home is supposed to be. So I would like to support that motion, that it is very important we be very keen, not only in looking at the isolated classrooms, but looking at an ECD level as an institution and thinking in terms of all the facilities which are supposed to be put in place to make that a standalone school, a standalone institution. I think we have a big challenge. We must be able, we must be prepared to allocate enough budget, and we must be able to progress the ECD centers so that from 1 class to 2 classrooms to, and by the end of either a CID cycle period, we are able to tell where we started and where we have been able to either to stop by the end of a period of 5 years. Otherwise, if we go continue either sometimes doing ECD centers of excellence, and then we have an entire county where we must be able to address the needs of all the learners across the county, we may not be able to achieve much. I support we allocate enough budget so that we can address the needs of those learners. And if we have a dream of being the next Singapore, as it has been in this country, then we must understand that it will only be right to address education. And whoever came up with the recommendations on educational reforms and gave ECD and VTCs to counties, I think it was something which was well thought of, and it is a challenge to us because those are very key levels. You have been given the responsibility to build that child from the very tiny age, and again when you go to the VTC, you are being told we have changed the curriculum to competence-based, and then you are the same institution, county, which is supposed to make sure that the education being taught in our VTCs is that hands-on, practical education, because that is where the country is heading to. So it is a very big challenge. The more we address with less seriousness, the more blame we will get in future, because counties have been given the very critical levels of education to address, and they are the drivers of education for this country going forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank
Kai
you.
was next.
Thank you, Honorable Joanna. Honorable Mwanga, before you stand up, you realize that there is a different speaker, and now that I'm not very sure whether he'll be seated here for the rest of the time, I may have to change the criteria that had been set before. So, and request members now to raise up hands so for the speaker to see them. So, just because you look curious, I'll give you the first priority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And
Mr. Speaker,
I will also, as you contribute, Honorable Monga, I will also, according to the way I've seen and the time maybe that we may have, I may again request members to try and be a little bit short so that we may have all members contribute.
thank you. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to be very brief because much of what I had said, I wanted to say has been said. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, actually every day is a learning day. And I have learned a lot about twins. And I can also teach the little minority about twins. The only 3 names in Ukambani which are synonymous with the twins is Brother, Kelly, and Twili. Mutua is not synonymous with twins. Back to the motion, which is on the table. I want to thank the whip for presenting this motion. It is timely. And as a house, we should be asking ourselves, what is the situation of our ECD centers across the county? Not in particular your ward. We shouldn't Because now it is time for budget making, it is my appeal that as a house, we allocate and give more funds to the executive, that is the Department of Education, to do all that that is captured in Evelyn's motion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Madam Evelyn for capturing Sawasawa East Indies Center in Masinga Central. I know you are my neighbor. You are very conversant. That is the speaker now I'm addressing. You are very conversant with Masinga Central Ward, and you know where Sawasawa East Indies Center is. Sawasawa East Indies Center, it's going to be serving, it is a class which was constructed by the county government in the year 2022, 2023. And up to date, Mr. Speaker, that class has not been handed over to the county government because the contractor has refused to hand it over because he has not been paid. That notwithstanding, Mr. Speaker, the Committee of Education and a visit to that standalone station. This standalone station, Mr. Speaker, will serve pupils who used to travel 7 kilometers to the north, 6 kilometers to the south, and 4 kilometers to the west of the station. Mr. Speaker, when the members, and Evelyn was one of them, visited the standalone.
Point of order, Honorable Brian.
Which point of order?
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Mwanga cannot address Madam Honorable Evelyn as Evelyn. The title Honorable is earned and must be respected by all members.
Thank you, Honorable Brian. Honorable
Mwanga. Noted. But he is also saying I cannot address Madam Evelyn as Madam. Now, which is which? Anyway, Honorable Evelyn, member for Kangundo East, was one of the members of Education Committee who visited the standalone facility. And I want to tell you, the toilet is pathetic. She had assured me the videos and the photos which were taken on that day, they will be aired for these members to see. I'm making this humble request. Maybe she can share in our official wall for members to see after this. The situation is pathetic. And I'm told, Her Excellency the Governor will be handing over the project in the next 2 weeks to the community. And there is no toilet. I think the officers of Education Department are not telling Her Excellency the truth. How do you take a CEO of a county, that is Her Excellency, to hand over a facility to the community and there is no toilet? I think they should move fast, and in the next 2 weeks, if it is true that what they are telling me, if it is true, they do something, even if it is a temporal latrine. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, I do support.
Thank you, Honorable Mwanga. Although you've not clarified whether the ICD class is already in operation, you've just said that it's closed. So I don't know, where are the pupils?
Mr. Speaker, the pupils are learning from a Mandi Ward class. And due to the heavy lanes, it is normal.
Now we get you.
Thank you.
Honorable Dominic, I believe that's the criteria that was
Honorable Speaker, I almost walk out because I thought I'm not being recognized, and this is one of the reasons I'm nowadays losing interest of this assembly. I better be very honest. Because I raise hands and I'm never recognized. I don't want to be on point on Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Dominic, maybe you might be forced then to change the seat where you are seated, you know.
Honorable Speaker, that's the most suitable place that I feel. But all the same, that will stand in. Let's proceed with a lot of seriousness about this matter, Honorable Speaker. We need to take this matter seriously. On a very serious note. When we came in this assembly in 2013, there was no infrastructure in this assembly to facilitate members to transact business. Mheshimiwa Karo can attest to this. Mheshimiwa Monga can attest to this. The staff of this assembly can attest to this. We had a skeleton assembly that and nothing. The Honorable Mheshimiwa Ngu is here, can also attest the same. And the assembly did a lot to facilitate members to have the prerequisite facilities so that they can transact their business. Let's go back to the motion. Mr. Speaker, currently we are struggling and fighting so much to have the so-called freedom. What's the term we are using in the assembly in terms of finances and what? Someone remind me. Autonomy. Thank you. We are struggling so much to have autonomy in our assemblies for one single reason, so that we can make decisions in terms of financial matters independently without having to go round and round and round. Currently, when we go back to the Constitution about devolution, it seems that most leaders, most county governments have not really understood what is all about devolution. ECD has not been given a priority in this assembly, in this county government, and in most county government. In the year 2015, the Honorable Mheshimiwa Karo, plus some other members, we were facilitated by this assembly to go to Kisumu County. Under the able leadership of then the Chair Education, Honorable Ngunzi, from Kibaoni Ward. And this was guided by a similar motion that had been brought in this assembly to discuss about the same. Because all what we were doing in terms of ECD is just construct a simple 1,800,000 worth class, as Honorable Kaviu has said, and then we leave it out. And we went to Kisumu, brought a very good report, brought pictures of very standard, simple ECD centers that we thought, if done by Machakos County government, will really support ECD education in this country. That has never been. Honorable Speaker, we are investing too much into services that are not adding much value to our people, and especially the kids. The situation when you go back to our schools, Mr. Speaker, there are some things that now the Committee of Education needs to take serious. One, the Honorable Minority Whip has outlined a few regulations and constitutional requirements that were set out so that ECD can be liberated from being run into the primary education centers. But that has not happened. We don't want to contradict with what is happening, because most of the head teachers in those primary schools want to have close monitoring of the ECDs. But the critical question that we need to ask ourselves, does it mean that the county government is not in a position to run and being able to take care of these institutions? That's the critical care. And I think, Honorable Speaker, as we proceed even to pass this motion, there needs to be a very serious stakeholder engagement between the Committee of Education and maybe have a stakeholder education of all ECD teachers in Machakos County, so that they can understand what are the challenges they are facing. One, do they need to be taken away from the institutions that they operate in it? Yes or no? Then if they want to be taken out, what are the challenges they are facing? So that once we go ahead, because right now we can say, yes, fine, we're going to move these schools from where they're operating. But do they have the prerequisite amenities? No, that is outright. We don't have toilets, we don't have kitchens, we don't have stores and this and that. So, Honorable Speaker, as we support this motion, we need to take it seriously. If any one of us here right now, because we are all parents, receives a call about his or a 3, 4, 5-year-old child, maybe has had a small issue, my friend, Honorable Speaker, this house can run into chaos. Even if it is you yourself. You might even forget that you are the presiding speaker and walk out. Because you want to address the issue of a young one whom you have received a call under a serious issue of threat. And that is exactly what we are exposing our kids in where we are coming from. I want to give a practical example. Githongori Primary School, Honorable Speaker, where you know very well, is sitting on half an acre shamba. It has a population of more than 1,600 children.
The ECD sits in the same institution, in the same compound of less than an acre. The same ECD students, the same toilets being shared, used by the ECD students, are the same toilets being used by the standard 1 up to grade 8 students in the same school. So imagine, Honorable Speaker, the bell has rung. We have 30 minutes to go for break. Everyone is rushing to the toilet. So what is going to be the mess there? All the ECD school going children will be in big mess. And in fact, to the extent, majority of themselves will go up, will end up messing themselves. And you understand what I mean by that. So there is a lot of mess. We are not taking care of these ECDs. And because, Honorable Speaker, because I wouldn't speak much because of time, now that ECD is devolved, it is the high time we think, as a county, are we able to handle ECD education? And the Honorable Chair, member of the Commissioner, Honorable Joanna from Mutituni, has actually joined two issues: education in the ECDs and education in our VTCs. Honorable Speaker, at what point in time, and this house can prove me right or wrong, maybe we have never received any report about vocational training centers in this assembly of what they are doing. I've never even seen or heard at any single day a governor, either the first or the current governor, presiding an event, either for graduation in those vocational training centers for the last almost 10 years. That shows that we are not committed, Honorable Speaker, to advancing what we have been granted to do. So what I'm saying is this, and for example, my Honorable Speaker, there's an issue I even put.
Point of information, Honorable Speaker.
Point of information.
Yes, I just want to inform the Honorable Member that is talk of this period now. The previous regime, we attended very many graduations, starting with the Matu Vocational Training Center. His Excellency, the Deputy Governor, we signed it over. Then he graced the occasion. And also Chileni. And I'm talking about the county.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. But I would say that I wish the Honorable Minority Leader would understand the concept under which I'm coming. The more emphasis we put on other county functions, how I wish we can also put the same emphasis on the same in VTCs. For example, and I even gave it an example in this assembly. Honorable Speaker, if you go to most of our VTCs, where we are doing mechanical, motor vehicle engineering, where our kids are learning courses in terms of motor vehicles, most of those VTCs, Honorable Speaker, are lacking a basic, simple, practical machine like a vehicle to practice. I want to thank Honorable Ngoi. Recently, we did some fundraising for him to take a vehicle to one of his VTCs because it was a missing requirement in those schools. And if you go around in this county, Honorable Speaker, you will find that there are so many vehicles that are running idle, getting wasted, that if taken to those institutions, can advance the knowledge of those students. Back to our motion. Honorable Speaker, we need to take this matter seriously. Going forward, we need to scale down on our expenditure in terms of the devolved functions and ask ourselves, out of the devolved functions, which key functions will give the honorable members here and even our governor more mileage in terms of service delivery? And I believe ECD is one of them. If we pump enough resources.
Point of information.
Mr. Speaker, I would request the honorable member to stick or restrain himself to the motion of the day, because we are only talking about ECD centers, and he has deviated to vocational centers, and also because every project counts. So there is no, I know from political point what is meaning by mileage, but what we are looking at is the quality and the impact every project will have to our people. So we request that through Mr. Speaker, he restrains himself to the motion of the day. He can
Honorable Dominic, just proceed and just be informed. Let's stick to the motion, and you only have
Honorable Speaker,
2 minutes.
I wish the Honorable Member was also listening
member.
to other members, because it was also said by Honorable Joanna, so he must have been serious with his phone than the business of the House.
So, and at times, when even the Honorable Minority Leader gave an example of twins, the aspect of twins was not part and parcel of the motion.
Honorable Dominic, just stick to the motion of the day.
How I wish these members informing others would also listen carefully, because all my arguments have been based on issues that have been brought on the floor of this house. I've not gone outside of this house. All what I have argued is all what has been, but all that was standing. Thank you.
Kindly,
I stand in front. Also, to culminate it all, I want to say this, Honourable Speaker. Let us take this matter of ECD seriously. If we give basic support, and the Honourable Kaviu has said clearly, giving an ECD 1 million shillings, Honourable Speaker, do an ECD center without a toilet. What are you exposing these kids to? So let us now, from now going forward, we'll better have like even 10 ECD classes every financial year, well fitted with the equipments, infrastructure, something that the next year we can even give, in 4 or 5 years' time, this county government can do at least 40 ECD classes of state-of-the-art, all in one, so that now we can say we are supporting. But otherwise, if we'll continue with the same way of doing one single class, you hand it over, no facilitated, then Honorable Speaker will not be actually realizing the real devolution aspect in terms of ECD devolution. So I support this motion and say that let the Committee of Education move forward and engage all stakeholders and ensure that it is realized in the best way possible. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Dominic. Honorable Brian. Just briefly, 3 minutes.
I'll be very brief, Mr. Speaker. This assembly has a lot of knowledge and a lot of data and reports which have been done on ECDs. I want to thank Mheshimiwa Evelyn for bringing this motion. But in the second assembly, we sent a team to Kericho to benchmark with Kericho on how ECDs are done. Most of the things Mheshimiwa Evelyn is recommending were actually in the report which was tabled in this assembly. It even included amenities like swings, slides, jumping castles. It's a very comprehensive report which was done by the second assembly. My appeal is, although I'm supporting our motion, is if we can actually be serious with the reports which come from this assembly and implement what the reports are saying, will go very far. So I want to support Mheshimiwa Evelyn's report motion, but still I want the Education Committee, which members are here, to look at that second assembly report on ECDs. It was very complete, including some very nice, beautiful seats for the small ones and the toilets. It was there, and a very comprehensive report, you remember. Number two, Mr. Speaker, and it's my part in short, this is what an assembly does. And some people are downplaying motions we are bringing to this assembly. But these motions are very important, and they are going very far. In fact, I want to commend my minority leader. In the second assembly, he came up with a very serious motion of upgrading several cities, towns, to municipalities. And as a chairman, and I cannot fail to say that before I sit down, as a chair of decentralized units and urban development, I want to commend Her Excellency the Governor, because today she has gazetted ad hoc committee to consider recommendation for municipality status of Matu, Kathiani, Mitaboni town, Masi, Mwala town, Masinga, Ekalakala, and Kiva towns to municipalities. Meaning that what we discuss here does not go down the drain. It's a serious assembly, and whatever we discuss here should be taken very seriously. I'm also appealing to my chairman, implementation, who is seated across. That committee is very key to this assembly on whatever we pass in this assembly. I'm urging my chairman implementation.
Honorable Brian, are you still
I'm
on
still
the same motion?
Yes, I'm still on the motion to ensure that whatever we pass here is being implemented by the executive, because that's the only way. Because I don't want that information. Because
Point
let
of
me tell you
information,
that-
Honorable Dominic.
Mr. Speaker, I want to inform the honorable member what he has just read has been pursued in my committee for the last more than 6 months, and corresponding reports and the honorable members of the implementation committee, where the honorable member knows I've done that. I am a performer.
Thank you, Honorable Dominic.
Mr. Speaker, what I'm trying to say, since he can say he's a performer, but we have not seen a report from the committee on implementation on whatever we have been passing in this assembly.
Honorable
And
Brian,
what I'm trying to say is,
can
we
you
can
speak?
continue
Can you,
passing.
Honorable
we can
Brian,
continue passing motions,
Honorable Brian.
But if they are not being implemented, we'll
Honorable
not go very
Brian.
far. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
No. Let's proceed. Let's proceed with Honorable Mwoki. The member is already seated.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Me, I want to go back to the motion, starting by commenting the Madam Honorable Evelyn for bringing it up. But I wanted to look at the totality of the ECDs, because here we have just been talking about the toilets, the classrooms, and the like. But I wanted to start with, for example, the land where they are being built. So that we get the totality of the ECDs, we need, first of all, to start with the land, the ownership of where they are going to build or where they stand as of today. We sort that one first. There is also the issue of the management of the ECDs. I happen to be a BOM member of the primary school where I went, of the primary school. And there is an ECD within the school. There is a standalone ECD classroom done by the previous government elsewhere. And as I speak today, we are having a problem between the primary school management and the ECD management. That is something that needs to be sorted, because the ECD class teachers are saying they are not under the primary school. So they will not be managed by the primary school teacher. I don't know if the other members have discovered this. So we also need to sort about the management of the ECD's classes vis-a-vis the primary school classes. I totally agree when Honorable Evelyn says about the toilets. I've already spoken about a standalone classroom. In fact, in the Dini ward, we have 2 of them. I had to construct toilets for those. So why would we do standalone classrooms which have no toilets? Because I wanted the students not to go as far, I had to start these other 2 classrooms. I pay the class teachers so that they can start classes nearer other than the students going far. The other thing that I would also wish we looked at, in the ECD, I talked about the land, I talked about the management, and then there is that issue of the classes having their own titles for the land. I mean the titles, not that one. I mean the schools that are in the primary schools now, there are ECDs within the primary school land. Now, how do you get that land to the ECDs alone? Because the primary schools are saying this is our land. There is a lot of conflict there. So if we wanted to do the totality of an ECD class, or as
Point of information.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, I just want to inform the Honorable Member who is on the floor that most of the primary schools, the land is owned by the county of Machakos. Even if the primary schools are for the nation, the land is for Machakos county government. And giving him an example, my 2 primary school, the land register number is registered under Masako County Council, and that is the county government of Machakos. When we were proposing to have a model baby care, it is only the county which aim to subdivide and have land for the baby care, and the other land remains for primary school. So it is the custodian of the lands is the county government of Machakos.
Thank you. And I think, Honorable Member, we need to stick to our today's motion. I think, Honorable Moki, wherever you are debating, forms a complete motion that can be debated in this Honorable House. It's a good one, but it's not well placed. So let's stick to our today's motion. You can come up with such a motion and we debate here. It's a good one.
The same thing, Mr. Speaker. I think I have a point to make, that the totality of the ECDs will not only be the toilets, the classrooms, and the like. It will emanate, or it will start with the land, the management, and all. I also want to say what Honorable Judas has said, that not all land belongs to the county government of Machakos. The school I'm talking about, I'm the one who got the Title 4, and it is owned by the Minister of Education, national government. Tafadhali. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Moki. Honorable Felix Ngwe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say that it's important that when members contribute, they don't just walk out. They can wait to hear the contribution of other members. I think you might be forced to do some communication maybe in the next sitting. That members should always sit down and also hear what other people have to say on their contribution. Thank you. And back to the motion, Mr. Speaker. I want to applaud Mheshimiwa Evelyn, and because most of the things have been said concerning this important motion, I will have three things. One, Mr. Speaker, you realize that ECD centers provide the functional education to our children, and we have all passed through that system. So it is a very paramount area whereby the county need to put some more weight. And as Mheshimiwa Dominic put it, I think it's the high time that the counties put more efforts to what is devolved to the county. Because we put so much efforts on other sectors, like the roads and other sectors, forgetting that we have serious devolved functions that we need to handle, like the area of ECD. Mr. Speaker, I want also to appreciate the county government of Machakos for what they have been doing regarding the ECD centers. Our government has been providing food for the ECD centers. And the things that Mheshimiwa Evelyn is requesting this motion are very critical. Because when the governor provides the ECD center with food, there's no kitchen to cook this food. There's no store to give this food. Mr. Speaker, our ECD teachers, for example, in Yata sub-county, they were to travel all the way from Katangi to Kitimani every Monday to get food that has been provided by the government for the children. Every Monday they go for the food to Kitimani, which is a long distance. If we had a store in every ECD center, this food could be delivered to the stores and our children get the stuff from there. So again, Mr. Speaker, you realize that there's a lot of inequality. For example, we have a curriculum of CBC. Most of our children from the public schools, they lack the learning materials. And these are some of the things needs to be provided by the county so that we can have equity of our children despite the socioeconomic background of our children. So I think this is a very timely motion, and as an assembly, we have a role to play so that we can make sure that these things happen. What are we need to do? We have the Committee on Education, the chairperson for that committee and the members. Please make sure that when the budget comes to this assembly, 2027, 2024, 2025, the budget is enough. We can do it in bits. For example, we start with like 2 sub-counties or 3 sub-counties. The next financial year, we can do 2 other sub-counties so that we can go down, providing this infrastructure and materials to our ECD centers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Thank you, Honorable Felix. Honorable Majority Leader
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be very brief because what I intended to say has been said again and again. First of all, I would want to thank the mover of the motion, the Honorable Evelyn Zeki. I don't know whether it was the mother instinct in you or because also of looking at the whole need to improve the infrastructure. I don't have a very big recollection of my life in nursery school, as we used to call them. But Mr. Speaker, I can tell you, I still remember the toilet that we used to, to go and relieve ourselves with. And I remember it because I used to fear it a lot. Actually, I rarely used the toilet, unless I was very hard-pressed to use it, because it was a pit latrine, but because it was constructed using logs, and the logs could not stick together properly, it had, you could relieve yourself from at least 3 places. And as you can see, normally I'm not a very big guy. I have always been tiny, but my mind has always been big. I always fear to go through the holes. I think it's very important, especially the toilet, even if other amenities could come later, but a toilet would increase the confidence of the learner. It could increase his or her dignity in so many ways. So I want to thank the Honorable Evelyn, but also say the role of the Assembly, as Mheshimiwa Ngoi has said, is now when we are doing the budgeting. We may talk about this and say it is good. We may, support it, all of us as a house, but if we do not allocate resources, I can tell you, as Mheshimiwa Kisila has said, that there is a report of the second assembly. There was no follow-up, I guess, because then if there was a follow-up, it means something would have been done in terms of resource allocation and implementation. This is now where we should come in as a house and urge the Committee of Education, through the chair and the vice chair, to work with the budget committee and also the governor, so that we engineer and refocus the priority and say, indeed, having an ECD class with associated amenities is very important. I pity most of us, Waheshimiwa, let me tell you, most of us could afford to send our young ones to decent ECD classes. And normally we do that. But ask yourself, when you are driving to come to the assembly, those young ones you meet on the road or you find on the road going to an ECD class that you as a more honorable member knows very well doesn't have a toilet. Ask yourself, you, a honorable member, coming across a kid who is going to an ECD center and you know very well there is a danger that that ECD center could collapse anytime. So let us be human to these young ones, and I agree with Mheshimiwa Ngoi again. We can do it in phases because the resources are always going to be limited. We can urge the county executive to consider with what the existing ECD classes before maybe constructing new ones to equip them with all the amenities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Majority Leader. Honorable Mulinge, then the mover will reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I start by congratulating Honorable Evelyn for this good motion, and the motion which is addressing common problem almost to every ECD center. Mr. Speaker, the National Early Childhood Development Policy Framework has been in place since year 2006. And the essence of the framework was to help the country, including Machakos County, to implement service delivery for ECD centers. Mr. Speaker, early childhood education is very critical in shaping the children's cognitive, social and emotional development. Aware that the essence and the importance of the ECD Center, Mr. Speaker, the observation about this motion, the problem is not with the executive, but the problem is with the assembly. Because personally, I've been touring the Department of Education regarding ECD centers in my ward, but the challenge they are having is shortage of funds. So, Mr. Speaker, to be sincerely, when we are addressing this motion, members, we should accept we have the mandate to represent our people in this assembly. When I'm talking about representing, I'm talking about when we are passing the budget. We need to see the amount of money for development allocated for Department of Education. Otherwise, we'll talk a lot about what is supposed to be done, but if resources are not enough, this is going to be a song. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, because of that. But sincerely, the situation in ECD centers, Mr. Speaker, it is messy. In Muvuti Kimakimo ward, I have more than 13 ECD centers. And if you look, the budget for development allocated, if we were to construct ECD, we will do one ECD center. And it means that moving with this policy framework, most of the ECD centers in Muvuti Kimakimwe, they will be addressed the next 20 years. So we need to open our eyes when we are passing the budget and give a lot of blessings to the Department of Education. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Mulinge. Honorable Evelyn, and as you come, Honorable Mulinge, I think you didn't have to accuse the Assembly. The Assembly has always allocated funds for the ECDs, so it is upon the executive to go and divide the little that they get. They would rather be having 10 classes if that's what the budget could allow. So I don't think there is any problem with the County Assembly. Honorable Evelyn, you can reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me first start by appreciating honorable members for attending plenary today. This motion has been deferred twice for lack of quorum. So thank you for coming today. I'm also looking forward to a day when we shall start the plenary with the same number and end the plenary with the same number. In short, without members moving outside. Let me also start by appreciating honorable members. Thank you so much for supporting my motion overwhelmingly. All has been said, and that's the fact in the ground. Personally, I visited all these ECD centers that have been mentioned, and the situation is very pathetic. Like Sawasawa, they have a very good class, but there's no toilet. The toilet that was there, we wondered how it was used. We even forced the area MCA, that is Honorable Mwanga, at least to show us how the teacher uses the toilet. And the funny thing, he was only able to move backwards because there's no place inside to turn to face the door. I'm making a prayer in this house. If we could be allowed to be having dramatized motions whereby it can be projected so that we can see the real issue of the ground for members maybe who don't belong to the education, so that they may see properly what's happening on the ground. The county government is mandated to take care and to facilitate ECD centers, and have been given guidelines by the National Policy 2018, the County Policy 2019. So it's up to them, and we also plead to them, so that they may make proper use of those guidelines, they follow them, they adhere to them, so that we may have proper ECD centers as it has been stipulated by the guidelines. So thank you, honorable members, for supporting the motion. As a member of the Education Committee with our able chair, Honorable Anastasia, we shall follow up the matter and shall also go back to the report that was produced in the second assembly so that we can see what we can incorporate with what we have so that we can follow the executive to implement what has been discussed here. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Evelyn. I now put the question that this House discusses and approves that the county government of Machakos, through the Department of Education, sets aside funds in the department's budget to cater for the construction of all amenities, i.e. toilets, kitchenette, food store, and office space for the ECD personnel that are required to set up an ECD center, strictly adhering to the setup guidelines and standards. As many as have the opinion say ayes.
Ayes.
As many as have the contrary opinion say nay. And the ayes have it. I hope our temple clerks will forward that motion to the executive for implementation. So, honorable members, the House adjourns to Tuesday, 7th May 2024 at 2:30 p.m.